Hi there everyone, welcome back to Infinity Drones. We are back with a new update on the DroneHacks application. The new version is version 1.27 and brings with it compatibility with the RC Pro and even enables the Mini 3 support for parameter and firmware flashing. So the main thing here is we want to take a look at the RC Pro firmware flashing. So when you open the DroneHacks website, go to the hacking tab and then you'll be able to read up all about what FCC is and what it does. Scroll down to a bit lower down, you'll see there's the explanation of how to see if you're in CE mode or in FCC mode. Now, since the RC Pro is running Android and not iOS, we only take a look at the Android section. So in CE mode, you can see the 1 kilometer line is in line with the 90 dB line, and in FCC mode, it is above the 90 dB line. Forget about the the iOS one. We're only concerned about the Android one. So make sure that after the flash is complete, that your line is above the 1 kilometer line. Now remember, DroneHacks supports multiple drones, and whenever you are wondering what support there is, just go up to the bird map on the top of the page. When you click on it, it's going to open the entire list of supported drones, and here you can take a look at what drones are supported. Please take note that these drones all are supported on certain firmware versions, and on some of these drones, if you go past a certain version, you can't downgrade. Now we are concerned about the RC Pro. You can see there's no recommended version, meaning anyone is going to work, but the one we want to be on is the latest firmware version, because obviously it supports the nice HDMI out and all those features as well. If you take a look at the Mavic 3, for example, it is only supported via the Android app. So if you buy a license, you'll have to download the Android app as well, and then from there you can move on. For those of you guys that don't know where to get the download or where to get the app from, at the top there's a download button. You can click on that and you can download it to your PC, or you can watch my 1.26 DroneHacks video. That's going to explain everything as well. To purchase a license, you click on the link and it'll take you to this page over here. You can either you have to create an account, but once you've created an account, you can log in and then you can pay. As like with all my DroneHacks videos, if you want to install or use DroneHacks, you will need to have DJI Assistant on your machine. Now, a lot of you guys might not have it, so just head over to the DJI Download Center and then select whichever one you need to do. DroneHacks recommends the DJI Assistant 2 for Mavic. You can see that one over there. But now with the newer drones, like for instance the Mavic 3, you will need to download and install the one for the consumer drone. So for instance, you'll go down all the way to the bottom, you'll see there's quite a few different versions of DJI Assistant 2. It's quite confusing actually. Why they just don't put support into one application, no one knows. But if you are using the Mavic 3 or the Mini 3, then you can download the consumer drones ones. For everyone else, it is still fine to use the one for just the Mavic one. The reason is just to get the correct drivers on your machine. Once you've done that, you can go and open up the DroneHacks application. There's no need to open the DJI Assistant 2. It just needs to be installed. We just need it for the drivers. So once that's done, you can go up and you can open up the DroneHacks application. You can use your login details to log in, and then you can power up your controller and connect it to your machine. Now, if you've got a Mini 3, you can obviously connect it as well, but you only have parameter modding and firmware options available there. But the main thing we want to do here is we want to make sure that when we connect our controller, it gets detected. In the log screen at the top of your screen, it should show device connected, and then it will show you on the left side your firmware version, as well as in the bottom pane your current firmware version as well. Now remember, from the bird map, certain drones need certain firmware. So be sure to always check your firmware and make sure that you are on the correct one, and that you also can go and download the correct ones if need be, so that you can flash the correct one. In our case, we are flashing the RC Pro to enable the FCC mode, which is great because that is essentially going to give us a FCC mode for the Mini 3, the Air 2S, as well as the Mavic 3. So that is a great solution for those of you guys that need some extra range. Now, once we've connected the RC Pro to the PC and it has now detected via DroneHacks, then the firmware versions will be shown, as well as all your other options as well. If you've already purchased a license, this is where it will automatically prompt you to link it to your controller. I've already done this, therefore it's not going to show this, but it is essentially just a click OK button when you log on for the first time. When you've got a free license, it will always do it automatically. Now, as you can see, it's detected the RC Pro. My firmware version is already it's the latest version, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to downgrade to an older version. So you just go to the hacking tab, you'll see that I've already got FCC mode enabled, but if I click on the download firmware page, it's going to open the dank drone downloader page, and I can go select my RC Pro from the list. Essentially just select DJI, scroll down to whichever model you've got. In my case, I've got the newest smarter controller, and then you can download whatever firmware you want. Now, I want to downgrade to an older firmware version, so I can show you guys the steps and how it's going to work. So I recommend doing this. It takes a long time. It's a 1.3 gig file. So in my case, I'm going to download an older firmware version. And then once that's done, I'm going to flash that older version. And then I'll be able, the whole DroneHacks application is then going to show you exactly what's going to happen. So you see, download the file. Like I said, I've already downloaded it. There's the files. I'm going to select the older firmware version there, version 0500, and I'm going to flash my RC Pro. I recommend doing a clean flash. It just makes things so much easier, and also you've got the advantage that you can always flash and you don't need to re-download another 1.3 gig file that you would do with DJI Assistant. I've sped this up significantly because it takes about 10 to 15 minutes. So just you can just take your time. It'll take a long time. Your RC Pro will probably reboot, and then you can see flashing is complete. This should take about 10 minutes. Okay. Now once this is done, you click OK, and now we can proceed to the next step. We are now on the older firmware version, and you can just see as soon as I click the OK button here that my firmware version on the top left is going to change, and it's going to show when the RC Pro has now restarted that I am now on the older firmware version. It's disconnected, as you can see. Now it's restarting, connected, and now you can see that once it detects it, my firmware version would have changed. This is very important that you guys check this out, because if you're not on the correct firmware version, it is not going to work. If I go to the hacking tab, I still have the FCC mod enabled from previously, but you would not have this option here. It would be blank. There would be no FCC mode there. You would physically have to go to the download or the flash original firmware version again. And once you've clicked on the flash original DJI firmware version option again, then there will be an automatic prompt for you to download the special firmware. Now, like I've already done this, and you can see there I'm going to select that file. That file is not available for download unless you've got a DroneHacks license, and if you open it in the DroneHacks application, it would prompt you to download that one. There's no other way that you can get that file. Also, you need to have the license, otherwise it won't work either. So in this case, I'm just going to flash the special intermediate firmware. Essentially, this is the one that gives us the ability to enable FCC mode. So you need to flash to this, and there's no other way. You've got to flash this one, but you might flash it, for instance, and you might get to a certain point where it just gets stuck. So in my example, at 83%, it just got stuck, and I left for about 5 minutes and it was still there. And now I recommend leaving it for at least 5 minutes to see if something happens or not. If nothing happens, you can see here I've left it I think for 10 minutes here, and it just kept going and going and nothing happened. So then you would need to close the DroneHacks application and just reopen it. Do not disconnect your RC Pro, okay? Just close DroneHacks application, open it up again, and you'll see it will automatically detect it. And since you've waited 5 to 10 minutes, it would actually have completed the firmware flash in the background. It just didn't display it on the front end. So don't worry when you see it. Just close it after 5 to 10 minutes and make sure that it's there. Okay, now in my case, you would still not see the hack option. So in this case, you can see we've got the DroneHacks linked. We've got the license linked as well. And now I am able to link the FCC mode. Now, because I have FCC mode now enabled, I now need the latest firmware version. Now, I like to just download the files all from the beginning, but you will see it would actually prompt you to upgrade to the latest firmware version. Now, you can click there and you can just choose the firmware file, and you can then just proceed to do another upgrade. So as you can see, you'll have to do this 3 times. So I like to use dank downloader, sorry about that, and just download version 0500 and then 0800 from the beginning, and then when DroneHacks prompts me for the special firmware, then I can do that one. So in this case, I'm just going to flash to the latest firmware now, and I'll click the flash button, and we just go through the whole process again. You guys will notice that essentially you download firmware, you flash firmware, you get the special firmware, you flash that firmware. You enable FCC mode and you will just flash the latest firmware again. That is how simple the whole process is. Okay, just remember, if it does get stuck at a certain point, in this case it got stuck at 85%, then just wait 5 to 10 minutes, because the flash will complete in the background. You will see that your RC Pro lights will still continue to flash and will still move and might even reboot. So please do not disconnect your RC Pro. After 5 or 6 minutes, you can go and close the DroneHacks application and then just reopen it to confirm that the flashing has done and happened completely. So once it's completed, you will be able to just verify your firmware version again. As always, you verify your firmware version, but sometimes you'll get an error. Now if you see that error, it's not something's wrong. Just close the DroneHacks application and then reopen it again. Okay, if you do get these error messages, it's most likely just because there's a connectivity issue between the DroneHacks application and the DroneHacks server. It's not something serious. Just close it and open it back up again and it should work properly. As you can see, I am now on the latest firmware version and everything's worked successfully. Okay guys, that is essentially how easy it is. If you liked the video, please consider to subscribe. Every comment, every share, everything you guys do really does help out the channel. And please do me a favor and check out my other videos on the channel as well. Especially if you're using different drones, then you would need to go check out that bird map. Now, please, just before we finish everything off again, just open your drone, your RC Pro, go to the application, and then go check if FCC mode has been enabled. Okay, remember, in CE mode, the line is equal to the 1 kilometer line, the 90 dB line, and in our case, we want FCC mode on the Android application. And that means that the 1 kilometer line or label must be above the 90 dB line. Okay, if it is, that's well done. Then you have FCC mode enabled. Enjoy.